a memo and a worksheet attached that has to do with SAGE. And this is strictly the finance side of it. It is not, an analysis of the benefits of the program itself. It's just strictly the cost side of it. And it's not an action item tonight, so in my opinion, and you can do with it what you want, but I think it's just information for you. And if there's not enough information here, then we'll just bring it back again as far as the philosophical, ideas of K3 and teacher-pupil ratio. And so if you would just kind of put both sheets side by side, I'll go through it. The top square rectangle of the worksheet is our current scenario in this current year. So I've listed the grade levels that pertain to the SAGE grant, which are K3. I've listed the number of sections that we have in each grade level, and I've listed the class size that we currently have. And so 32 regular FTE, regular ed teachers for our K3, and 535 students is what we have this year. Now with those sections of regular ed, we do have sections of the specials, which would be the art and the phy ed and music. And so in the little gray box there, I've given you what the FTE is for that many sections of students. And so to support 32 sections of students, we need 7 full-time equivalents. Remember, the FTE stands for full-time equivalent teachers, so we need 7 of those to support those sections in the specials. So the 32 and the 7 equals a total FTE of 39. And then over to the right, I've given you the actual cost of those 39 FTE. So it's not an estimate or an average per teacher, it's actually the 39 teachers. I've used actual numbers in this scenario here. So the $3,053,000 is the salary and benefit cost. And then I've given you what the SAGE grant dollars are for this year. So that would be the 303. The net then between the expense of our K3 and the grant is the $2.7 million. And then I've given you what the state aid will be on that $2.7 million expenditure for next year. State aid is aid that we obviously get every single year, but it is based on expenditures of the previous year. And so that aid amount, the $1.8 million, obviously we're getting aid on the salaries this year from what they were last year, but I needed to try and make this an apples-to-apples comparison. And so I'm giving you what the state aid is at 68%, which is what we're currently aided at, is the $1.8 million, and that is actually money that we will receive next year. Not that we're not receiving it this year, we are, but I'm trying to keep it I'm trying to keep it the same. So then I took the difference between the net cost, the 2.7 and the 880,000. Okay, so that's why I came up with that. Does anybody have any questions so far? Because I kind of repeated the same process going forward. Okay, the next square then is, you'll see right under where it says scenario 1, this is keeping the SAGE program for next year. Same as it is, K3, no changes as far as grade level is concerned. But there's a change as far as the students, because now we're going to graduate our students up a grade level. And so the kindergarten class in the 12-13 school year is our estimate. It's 124. We think that's kind of high, right, Lou? We think
It's about where it should be.
you think it's going to be that high next year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that's a good estimate. And then I took every grade level from this current year and moved them up. So the 142 class is now in 4th grade. And so you can see our students go from 535 down to 517. And so there could be a reduction in FTE for regular ed teachers, and SAGE will not be affected whatsoever. Now, because the class sizes for this scenario 1, the 18 across the board, is really not 18.0, it's really 17 point something, because it doesn't work out evenly, and since we don't really have 17.7 kids or 17.2 kids, I rounded it up to the 18, but then I gave you what the maximum students could be, and that 18 would still be 18. So if you look at the kindergarten class, in the scenario 1, I have 124 students is our estimate, but it could be as high as 126 students, and it would still be 18 students in a class. Does that make sense? So I gave you the maximum without jeopardizing the SAGE requirements of class size. And so I did the same with the specials. There is a formula to use to figure out how many FTE we need to support with the specials classes for that number of sections, which is now at 29, and that goes to 6.6. So now my total FTE is 35.6 in this scenario 1. And so the 2.8 million over on the right is the actual cost of those FTEs, and then I left the SAGE grant estimate for next year the same, because we would have it in the same grade levels, K-3. It would not be a reduction in the grant, I hope. And then I netted it, and again gave you the aid, and then I gave you the cost minus the aid, and now it's at 809,000. And so I did.
Just a second, just remind me again how we got from the 39 to the 35.6 FTE from scenario 1 to 2.
The number of sections for regular ed went down from 32 to 29.
Okay, so we're talking 3 sections.
Yep.
Different,
3 sections
3
less.
teachers,
Mhm.
and then part of the
Specials.
specials.
Right. It doesn't change the time that students get in the specials. It just changes the number of sections of specials needed, because now we have less sections of
Right.
the classroom. Scenario 2 now is a reduction in the SAGE grant itself, and now SAGE is only applied to grades K through 2. And so you can see what that does to the numbers. The 517 students now stays the same moving forward, because these are different scenarios all for next year. There is a reduction of 2 FTE for the sections, which then again impacts the specials. And so the 27 and the 6.3 equals 33.3. And again, the 2.6 million for the salary and benefits is the actual cost of the 33.3. Now the SAGE grant goes down. And that would be an estimate of what the SAGE grant would look like then with only a K-2 program. It's no longer 303,000, now it's less. Okay, and then we have the net, the rest of the math is exactly the same. And then just so you have everything in front of you, then scenario number 3 is, what it may look like if SAGE is not here. And, the FTEs that are there are just, I picked 6 sections across the board, not that couldn't be anything else. It could be anything you want it to be, but that's just an idea of what it would look like with SAGE gone all together. And so then you can see we're down to 29.6 FTE total, and the benchmark or the comparison number to look at is the 777,000, which is the cost minus the aid. And so in my opinion, financially speaking, only scenario 3 is worse than scenario 2. So scenario 2 on a money side is the least expensive to the district. So
Scenario
again,
number 2.
yeah, it's not an action item for you tonight, it's simply information. And so if you want more from us on the flip side as far as the philosophical, educational principles behind SAGE, then we can do something different for you.
The thing about, I'm just going to give you guys a little background a little bit on SAGE too, is that SAGE, right now, we are in our contract. We don't have to reapply for our contract until 15-16 school year. So we have through the 14-15 year. What we can do with SAGE is that we can opt out a year without having to redesign the contract, because we are in a set contract. So if you wanted to cut the 3rd grade and opt out on 3rd grade for SAGE in 1 year, we can bring it back the next year. Or we can opt out on grade 2 and keep 3 and bring it back the next year. Or we can do both 2 and 3, but we have to keep SAGE, we have to keep 1 K and 1. But as far as looking at the numbers here, there's a lot of schools that I know of that are starting to look at this also the same way that we are. And what's going to happen is that our number, if when we go down in numbers, we also lose numbers in funding. So losing the numbers in funding is not a good scenario for us. Our best option is to keep it the way it is. Because one is that there's only a $26,000 difference from opting out on year grade 3 and keeping it K3. The other thing is, like I said, we lose funding in SAGE, we also lose funding in state aid. And I don't think, as far as the way we're looking at things right now, losing money in both areas is not a good situation for any of us.
And Eric, you were taking the 106,000 savings minus the 71 savings to say that losing SAGE at the third grade is not worth that
Right.
expense. Okay, what do you think? And Lou, that's exactly what you need. So, at DPI, thank you.
Amazing.
I'd asked Lou if you could opt out of the grade level for a year and then bring it back if you wanted to. And so she checked with Sandra Ryan at DPI and said that you can do that. You have to keep exactly what Eric said. You have to keep K and 1, but you can opt out of second grade or third grade or both, and then you can bring them back.
She made no financial recommendations. No.
She didn't because she doesn't know our situation, so she's not going to make those recommendations. But, you know, Eric has done a pretty decent job holding that.
One of the questions I have been answered. That's a good thing.
Any other?
I have a question. I just want to clarify in your spreadsheet. So the amount that actually would show up in our actual budget for what we actually have to pay is going to be that last line then, right? So like the 809, 054 in scenario 1, 773, 934 scenario 2. Those bottom line numbers, those are what would actually show in the budget.
You won't see those numbers because it's crossing 2 fiscal years. So the aid, because I'm.
But the total between the two would,
Yeah.
okay.
And I just do want to say that the listening session that Nancy and Tina and I had before this, we had several teachers talking to us about their feelings about SAGE. So I took, I think, pretty good notes. So if you want to have that discussion now, if you want to have that discussion at a future time.
Well, I do want to ask one question between what you're saying, Doreen, and what Eric is saying. Eric, you're saying that to you the best scenario is keeping SAGE as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Doreen, I thought what you're saying from a purely fiscal point of view is that the best scenario is keeping SAGE through grade 2, but eliminating it for grade 3 for a year.
Yeah, but it's the small difference that.
But the difference is a matter of, and you agree with Eric, the difference is a matter of $26,000 between those two, keeping it or not keeping it. Okay.
Okay, I guess I have a follow-up to that then. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for putting it that way, because that saved me a question. So if we actually take the difference with this scenario 1, which was 809,000, and then scenario 3, where we actually have no SAGE funding whatsoever, that's 777. So the difference, $31,000. So that's really the only dollar benefit that we're going to get if we were to totally eliminate SAGE.